Hi, I'm Jacqueline Hyman. I created a video game for my Intro to Game Programming class in Unity using C#. So I'm going to talk about the requirements. I am going to show you the game and how it works, and I'm also going to show you a little bit of code so you can see exactly what I did. Okay, so first use C# in the Unity engine. So here is my Unity engine and my C#. Okay, so next I need to display a 2D sprite on the screen. So if we go into here, this is my game. This is my sprite. Did you see? You can move. I'll show you how I did that in a minute. So as long as the player is pressing the arrow, the sprite should continuously move in the selected direction. So here we go. I am pressing the right arrow. I'm pressing the left arrow. Up and down. You can see they continuously move smoothly. If you press more than one button, it kind of goes diagonal. All right. We also need to do a thing where you press shift and you move. So I'm holding shift and pressing the arrow. It only moves one unit. And I'll show you how I did that. As you can see, it works in all directions. And if I hold it, nothing happens. Like I have to let go and press it again. Okay. If the user presses the space bar, the sprite should reset to the center of the world. So I'm just going to kind of go this way a bunch. Probably to the... Okay. I'm going to press space bar. And you can see that the background's changed. I've reset. And I'll show you how I did that as well. And then the rest is I'm going to do after I show you this stuff because it kind of disables parts of the game. So first I'm going to show you how I moved. So in here I created a C# page called ship controller. It controls all the movement. Up here at the top I have some variables. I have a vector which is called center, and it resets it's what helps reset the ship to the center of the world, and you can see here that it goes to 0, 0. I have this transform. It is for the ship. It helps me with the movement, and this speed is also for movement. Okay, so the first thing I did was in the start function, I grabbed the ship and I got the component for transforming it. Then down here, I set it up so if it looks and sees, is the user pressing a shift key, like the left shift key or the right shift key? If yes, do this movement. And then down here I have else. So if no, do this type of movement. So if the player is pressing the shift key, I use an if statement to get the input and get key down, which makes it so you have to lift up and press the button again in order to move. If you just use get key, if you hold it, it'll work and it'll continuously move. But get key down, it just says, did they press it down? And then it continuously wants to get pressed down in order to do the stuff. And then I have it on left arrow here and the letter A. And then in here I have a vector, new variable called position, I call it pause. And it sets the current position to the variable. And then pause.x. So for the x value, I decremented it by 1, and that moves the sprite to the left. And then down here, I did the same thing. I got the right arrow key down, and I got for D. And then it does the same thing, but instead of decrementing, it increments it by 1, and it moves it to the right. For up and down, it's basically the same thing. So I got up arrow here, or W. And then I basically do the same thing, but instead of incrementing for X, I increment for Y, so it goes up on the screen, 1 unit. And then this one down here for down is the same thing. We go get the down arrow, or the S, and then decrement Y by 1 to move it down 1 unit on the screen. Okay. So in this else, I set up a little bit differently. So if the player is not pressing shift, we're going to move this way. So we want to get the input. So right here, this top one is left arrow or A. And what I did was take that variable for the ship earlier that I declared, and I said ship.position. So the ship's position equals its position plus a vector 3 to the left times the speed. And I left the speed like public and not really declared as far as what the value is for it. So you could set it in the engine. And then I did the same thing for all of these. So for right arrow, the only difference here is that it's for vector 3 right. For up, it's vector 3 dot up. For down, it's vector 3 dot down. And I times all of them by the speed, so it gets to that nice continuous movement. Okay, so the next thing that I did was set the position of the sprite to the center of the world when you press spacebar. So I did that. I just used an if statement. I got the input for key down for spacebar. And then I said transform.position equals center. And that center is this variable up here that I have set to 0, 0. So it returns the sprite to the center of the world. And then below that, I have an if statement that deactivates the game object. So we had to set it to the Q key. So I said if input.get key down, key code Q. So if the Q key is pressed down, you'll get the game object and set active to false. But it just deactivates the game object. And I'll show you how that works in a minute. So I'm going to switch over to my component toggle. So this part toggles the ship controller one component, the other C# page that we were just on. And basically what it does is turn on and off movement for the ship. And I can show you how that works in a second after I'm done explaining to you. So the first thing I did was get a variable for the ship controller. I named it ship. Then in the start function, I called it and I set it equal to the game component ship controller, which is what the movement is called. And then down here in update, I said if input.get key down, key code P. So if P is pressed, then the ship dot enabled equals not ship dot enabled. And all this does is set it to whatever it's not. So if it's disabled, it'll set it to enabled, and if it's enabled, it'll set it to disabled. And then I used a tutorial to figure that out, which is down here. It was very straightforward and very helpful. It was a lot easier to do than I expected. Okay, and then one of the last things we had to do is be able to quit the game. So in here, I my quit component. I just down here in update said if the player presses escape here, then quit the application. And then I put here a debug, just so when I was Okay, so the next requirements was that if the user to press the P key, the component for the ship would be disabled. So right now, you can see that I'm moving. Okay, and then I'm going to press P. And then I'm pressing buttons. And you can probably see the laptop shaking because I'm pressing so hard. And nothing's happening. Pressing W, A, S, D, the arrow keys, spacebar, nothing's happening. But I'm going to press P again. You can move. And press spacebar and go back and press the shift ones. So, and I showed you how that worked. Also, I had the Q keys, so that should set the game object to inactive. So, gonna just go ahead and do that, but it's gonna break the game. I'm not gonna be able to do anything. Press it again. Nothing happens. I'm gonna have to exit and restart the game.